rebounding as central banks around the world print more money. Yeah, people fleeing into these safer trades. Right now you're talking about gold up another $10 today, $965 an ounce. We've been following this trend and much more, and so has Jim Grant. He's the editor of Grant's Interest Rate Observer. And Jim, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Becky. Nice to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about those gold prices. Is there a concern, should there be more concern about inflationary pressures out there based on all the printing of money that we've seen?
Well, central banks are doing what they have literally never done before. There's a very pretty phrase for this policy, which is quantitative easing, which almost sounds as if it were the creation of some Nobel laureate. Quantitative easing is money printing on the wholesale level. And not just the Federal Reserve, but the Bank of England is at it. The Swiss National Bank, of all banks, is at it, or at least professes to be, not to mention the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, which actually led the way. But the Fed, for example, to give you an idea of what is going on in the Fed, for decades and decades, the Fed's balance sheet showed $20 billion of deposits by commercial banks. That's it. $20 billion. It was like $20 billion in the Eisenhower administration, $20 billion in 2007, and now it is $830-odd billion. From $20 billion over like 4 or 5 decades to $830-something billion in one fell swoop, or one fell leap. And people say, well, so what? This is tinder, but it is soaking wet tinder because of the skies opening and because of the debt crisis. You know, but no one does know when the sun shines again. And this wet tinder can become very well dry, in which case we might see a whole lot of unscripted inflation.
You think we're headed down the road that Zimbabwe has already taken?
Please say no.
That was a rhetorical flourish,
Yeah,
Becky.
okay.
But certainly the theory of money printing is not so far away from Gideon Gono, who is, by the way, who is the governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. So he and Ben Bernanke have not so much in common except a faith in the capacity of central banks through money creation.
He's a piece of work, that guy.
For Gideon Gono?
Yeah, cracks me up.
So Jim, would you support the bill that is in front of the House at the moment? It has 206...
Wherever the bill is, no, I'm against it.
No, but listen to that, because that supports what you're saying. It has 206 co-sponsors, and it's in favor of auditing the Fed.
Auditing, yes.
You're in favor of that?
Yes, sunshine is good. And the Fed actually is audited, but it might be better audited. The Fed is this peculiar institution. It is a bank, but a most unusual bank. And if the Fed examiners were set upon the Fed's own documents, you know, unlabeled documents, to pass judgment on the Fed's capacity to survive the difficulties it faces in credit, it would shut this institution down. The Fed has like $45 billion of capital, $2.1 trillion of assets, including the dogs and the cats of the credit difficulties. And the Fed is undercapitalized in the way that Citicorp is undercapitalized, at least before the magical transference of preferred to common. That is over, right? We saw that?
We did. Okay. Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, the bank looks so much better.
You are actually speaking about the dangers of misplaced hope, as you called it, in terms of protracting recession.
Well, yeah, dangers of misplaced hope and, of course, mispriced assets. You know, we are making progress in this slump. Every day seems a little bit better than the preceding day, which is good. But I guess we have to, I mean, there are natural curative processes in markets, right? Low prices are the cure for low prices. At low prices, people produce less and they buy more. Ergo, we're still not in the recession of 1991. We're still not in the Great Depression. So cycles are, to a degree, self-curing. And I think that the self-curing is perhaps of is of greater benefit this time around than the exertions of our government.
Jim, we've been kicking around the theoretical way that inflation is created through printing money,
yeah,
and then the actual way that it happens, and that is where, you know, employment gets tight, pricing power comes back, things get, you know, the economy we're not there, and well, it's hard to see how it seems like you got to connect a lot of dots to get the printing of the money to inflation in this period. How long does it take?
Well,
take 5 years?
Well, the last great hope of the Treasury bond bulls is so-called output gap, and they observe that we can produce so much, and we are producing so little. And the gap between what we could produce and what we are producing measures the slack in the economy. And so great is this slack, they say, that it will be fiscal quarters years before there's anything like a murmur from the inflation front.
Can we soak up? Can the Fed soak up the liquidity so we could?
Oh, can the Fed soak it up? It could.
I mean, can we somehow avert this disaster that we're talking about?
No, with the prospective inflation.
Yeah.
Yes, but let me speak to this output gap first. That is not an especially good leading indicator of inflation. It hasn't been. Paul Casriel of Northern Trust has shown that it's not very reliable.
Tell us what's happening right now. Right. Inflation is based on what people think is going to happen.
But you have unemployment still rising too.
Inflation also is based principally upon the rate of money printing. And M2 is growing 9% year over year, which is very different, by the way, than the Depression of 1929 and 33. What you didn't have then was M2 growing at 9%.
But when you have unemployment getting up towards 10%, can you get that sort of price-wage spiral that comes in?
To me, inflation is too much money. It's not too much money chasing too few goods. It's too much money. What the money chases is